begin here in Nigeria, where the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party says those clamoring for the removal of the national chairman of the party can only achieve the ambition through constitutional means. Atiku Abubakar was speaking in Ibadan during an interactive session with stakeholders from southwest Nigeria. Arise correspondent Olutayo, Famous Cole, reports.
Engage the pulse of stakeholders in the southwest extraction of Nigeria's main opposition party, the People's Democratic Party.
Nigeria therefore needs you, a unifier, a bridge builder, and a tested leader as next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Your candidature is the tonic Nigeria needs to regain our vitality.
So welcome our incoming president from next year, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, to our zone and to assure him of our determination to support his ambition to a successful end.
Leaders of the party from across the nation converged on Ibadan, where they reached a consensus to work for the interest of the party ahead of next year's general election.
So today, you'll be addressed by the presidential candidate of our party, who was the chairman and vice president and chairman of National Economic Council under President Olusegun Obasanjo from 1999 to 2007, where he presided over the National Economic Council. And I'm sure you know the economic policies that they drove together with his boss that brought about prosperity for Nigeria. That is what we are going to witness by the grace of God under his leadership.
The Nigeria of today is not the Nigeria of our dream. There is only one amongst the entire lot who has that capacity, who will have respect for all and is ready to sit down to discuss with all, and has enough experience to put us together. And that man, you know, is Atiku Abubakar.
Of PDP should be restructured such that what you have in the face of Nigerians right now, which is our candidate is from the Northeast, the PDP national chairman is from the North Central, but we must resolve the issue of what we have in the face of Nigeria by asking the national chairman to step down.
The People's Democratic Party say they are confident of victory under the leadership of its presidential candidate. Addressing delegates at the event, former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar urged those seeking for the removal of his national chairman to do so through constitutional means.
I have no problem from wherever any member of the party comes from, but it must be done in accordance with our constitution, our regulations, and our practices. Therefore, what Governor Sheyi is calling for is achievable under our constitution, under our conventions, under our rules, under our regulations, and under our procedures. So those institutions must guide to whatever changes we make.
Atiku, who promised to unify the party, appealed to PDP members to work for the interests of the party at next year's general election.
So, Your Excellencies, distinguished leaders of our party in the Southwest, what is before us? I don't want us to lose focus. The focus is how do we win the next election? And I want to assure you, it is doable, it is It's achievable. We can do it. We have the capacity to do it. We have done it before.
The leadership of the PDP assured that they would continue to synergize with all stakeholders in its determination to wrest power from the ruling party. Olutayo Femosko, Arise News, Ibadan.
And a delegation of the new leadership of People's Democratic Party Board of Trustees in Umuahia in talks with Abia State Governor Okezie Ikpeazu. It's part of the reconciliatory meeting by the PDP national leadership and some aggrieved stakeholders of the party, including Ikpeazu, Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike, Benue State Governor Samuel Otom, Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde, and others. The delegation is led by former Senate President and acting chairman of BOT, Senator Adolphus Wabara. They are meeting at Umuahia, country home of the governor in Opingwa local government area of Abia State. Having a lot to talk about this morning, so they're still on the PDP and their debacle.
Yes, and with any luck, they'll be able to wrap all of these wranglings up before campaigns start and it ceases to be a distraction, which is exactly what it is. But I just find it really instructive, though, that right from the beginning, there's been consistency in terms of that call for Senator Iyorchia Ayu to resign. And that call has not changed in spite of efforts by Senator Iyorchia Ayu to reach out. When those efforts failed, he also lashed out. There was that vote of confidence recently, but none of that seems to have convinced this group within the party. There's that quartet of PDP governors that you just listed, Governors Wike, Ikpeazu, Otom, and Makinde, who we just heard, still making that call for Iyorchia Ayu to resign. And it just appears that that's quite intractable on that score. So what exactly will happen? Even the presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar, is now seeming to be sort of more conciliatory on that score, saying as long as it's done in line with the Constitution. So it's not an outright rejection of the idea anymore. And if it does emerge that that is the one factor that, full cooperation of all, party members rests on, he might want to fall on his sword. This is Senator Iyorchia Ayu, and just resign for the peace of the party so that the party can move on. Because recently, yesterday, their presidential candidate got all the plaudits for, outlining his economic plan, and not for the first time either. He is getting, praise for being forthcoming about his economic plans, while the details might be sketchy, which tends to happen in a campaign anyway. But that should be the focus of the conversation even till now. Unfortunately, it's already overshadowed by the politics, by this internal wrangling. And it's really most unseemly. It's gone on for ages. I hope the party is able to just move on. Because as the candidate was saying, it's all about winning the election. Mm-hmm. Will that be possible with all of this?
The one you said, Tundo.
Okay, a number of issues. First, presidential candidate of the PDP, Atiku Abubakar's visit to the Southwest. Beginning with a presentation at the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Yesterday, I commended the SCCI for, leading in that direction, getting the candidates to begin to talk about the issues. And I hope that is an example that will be followed by other policy think tanks, associations that are interested in the immediate future of Nigeria. And that will include NASIMA, other chambers of commerce, other groups, so that we just get these candidates, to begin to talk about issues, about what they intend to do. Okay? Having discharged his responsibilities on the platform of the SCCI, Atiku then, of course, met with Lagos State stakeholders, which for him was also a good outing, where he promised that he will help the People's Democratic Party in Lagos this time around, the team of Jandon and Funke Akindele, to dislodge the APC in Lagos. And then they moved on to the more, important task at the party level, which is a meeting with the PDP stakeholders in Ibadan. The choice of Ibadan is, of course, strategic. That's where you have a PDP governor, Seyi Makinde, who is clearly, at the moment, the leader of the party in the Southwest. And now, what were the issues that came up there? Not surprisingly, Seyi Makinde pointed out that, yes, it's good to play the politics of inclusion, and that should be the focus of the party, but that he thinks that Ayu must resign. That was one issue that came up. Clearly, what are the major takeaways from that PDP stakeholders forum in Ibadan? One, that the party is divided. the candidate Atiku Abubakar put his finger on it when he said, look, our main task is to win election. But can you win election with a divided house? Particularly at a time when key members of the APC, of the PDP, are being wooed by the APC candidate, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as we have been told. And you have within the party, as Chief Olabode George, one of the founding fathers of the party pointed out, a North versus South division within the party, with the Southerners saying that, look, there must be inclusion, there must be representation. Governor Ikpeazu of Abia State also made that point. So you find that this division, the Wike camp versus the other camp, or if you like, the southern wing of the PDP versus the southern wing of the PDP, as Chief Olabode George put it. Now that division is not likely, to bode well for the party. It's also not very good optics, because the electorate is likely to think, don't let me go and waste my vote. These people can't put their house in order. And if Atiku says he's the unifier at all levels, then he has the responsibility to unify the party. So at the political level, the party has that political problem internally, with Wike and his allies saying, Ayu must go to reflect national character. 2, that Ayu must go because Atiku himself had promised Wike that, Ayu must step down. 3, that Ayu himself made a promise that he will step down if a candidate were to emerge from the northern part of the country. Now, the party has not been able to resolve that, despite all efforts. Chief Adolphus Wabara, who replaced Senator Wahid Jibrin as the chairman of the BOT, led a team to go and meet with Governor Ikpeazu. He's also planning to meet with Governor Otom, Governor Wike, Governor Makinde. Well, will he get any assurance? Clearly, Wike and his allies are insisting that the irreducible minimum is that Senator Iyorchia Ayu must resign from that position. And that leads us to the other leg of the crisis that the PDP faces in this matter, which is constitutional. And again, the candidate of the party, Atiku Abubakar, drew attention to that, to say that, yes, the demands that were put on the table yesterday by Governor Seyi Makinde, and also at other forum by Chief Olabode George, that the issues can only be resolved if the procedures, the processes in the PDP constitution are reviewed. In other words, you need to amend the constitution. Because what does the constitution of the PDP say in terms of that position? It says simply that if the chairman of the party or anyone from a particular region leaves, then of course, he will be replaced by somebody else from that particular zone, from that particular region. So if Iyorchia Ayu were to resign tomorrow, if he's forced to resign, if the constitution remains as it is, he will be replaced automatically by the deputy national chairman, who is even from the northeast. And the presidential candidate is from the northeast. Then the concern expressed by the southerners, will not have been addressed. So you are back to the same situation. What is the solution? What is the way forward? Some people are saying that, look, what you have to do is probably dissolve the National Working Committee of the party. In fact, if you dissolve the National Working Committee of the party as it is, you just complicate problems further. Because in Edo State, Governor Obaseki is saying that if you force Iyorchia Ayu out of the place, he himself will leave. So from all angles, it looks like the party just must find some kind of accommodation. Because if you dissolve the National Working Committee, you will now have to put an interim committee in charge of the party. The problem is still not solved. So let us hope that everyone will remain focused on the fact that political parties are there to win elections, and that members of the People's Democratic Party will be advised, well advised. If memory is still something that is very important in political processing, of what happened to the party in 2015, when some aggrieved persons, 2014, really, when some aggrieved persons in the party were allowed to leave. So trying to keep everybody together may well serve the purpose. I hope they'll be able to find some accommodation, but in any case, that finding an accommodation in the PDP is not something that either the APC or the Labour Party will be praying for. Because if the PDP implodes, then it's to the advantage of the PDP, the Labour Party, and other political parties like the AAC and others that are on the ballot. But at the moment, this is the state of play in the PDP, and I hope, to borrow a phrase from my brother Olusegun Adeniyi, the PDP will not run against will not position itself against the run of play.
That's a football terminology. And when they say in football that you score against the run of play, that means the opposition team was attacking you, and all of a sudden you got a chance and you scored a goal. For me, I think the PDP, I'd like to cite what is happening with the PDP with two scenarios. Number one will be a self-caused tsunami. And I deliberately use the word tsunami advisedly, because a tsunami is an earthquake that happens in the water body. So there is flooding that comes with it, and also there is chaos. And we've seen what tsunamis, the devastating effect tsunamis have. And that's where the PDP is today. Because any way you look at it, there's a problem. And all of this problem, Mr. Olugbedi was saying yesterday, don't talk about it, went back to the emergence of Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. The fact that the party had a zoning structure that was violated, the fact that the party, a lot of people feel disgruntled, that why will it be a candidate from the north? The fact that a lot of people feel disgruntled, that why did they even keep it open in the first place when zoning was accommodated and all of a sudden the rules were changed? You cannot deny that fact. And that's why you see there are lots of people that feel disgruntled with the party, people like Ayo Fayose and the likes. Now they are trying to quell one fire in Abia State. They are trying to put out another fire in Edo State, and everybody keeps saying, you must go. And I'm happy Dr. Abati laid the facts bare on the table. If he goes, more chaos. If he stays, more chaos. So what do? I'm not even sure that a mathematician with knowledge of Pythagoras' theorem can help them solve this. I am not sure. Because this equation is like a mix of a quadratic equation and then the other forms of equation put together. It is a difficult one to untangle. What is the PDP going to do? At some point, they have to bite the bullet. The PDP has to ask itself, can they move on with or without Wike? And that's the critical question they don't want to ask. That's why when Mr. Ologbodi came here yesterday, we are talking. The critical question the PDP doesn't want to answer is the fact that can we go into the 2023 elections with or without Mr. Nyesom Wike? The earlier they answer their question, the better it is for them. I said the other day, the second illustration I want to make is the fact that how close is the Titanic to the iceberg? And it's obvious it's closer than ever because they don't want to answer the question. It's fast becoming a sinking ship. Tunu, let me use your word that caused controversy. That doesn't want to be buoyed by taking tough decisions.
Imagine buoyed. Controversial. Good heavens.
That doesn't want to be buoyed by taking tough decisions. And at this point in time, the PDP need to stand strong and take those tough decisions. They need to understand what Archimedes called the principle of flotation. They need to stay afloat. And they are staying afloat to be incumbent on Mr. Wike going with them or not. The question is, can they do it with Mr. Wike? Time will tell. I think that's the cardinal point they don't want to talk about. They keep patching it here and there. The question is, can the PDP enter 2023 elections without Mr. Wike? At some point, if all of this is not going their way, they need to make that decision and damn the consequences. The outpouring of love and support and tribute have marked the passing of Queen Elizabeth II since her death on Thursday. Last week continued yesterday as the British High Commissioner in Lagos held a service of commemoration in her honor. Arise senior producer and correspondent Ozioma Okoli was there.
The British High Commission in Lagos held a service of commemoration in honor of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II at the British residence in Oyinkan Abayomi Drive, Ikoyi. The commemoration service began with the arrival of the Governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. It was an evening of hymn rendition Bible reading and prayers.
I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep.
By your power, Christ conquered death and returned to you in glory. Confident of his victory and claiming his promises, we entrust your servant Elizabeth into your keeping. In the name of Jesus Christ our Lord, who, though he died, is now alive and reigns with you and the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forevermore.
Really, what we're doing today is not just honouring her memory, but celebrating her life and her strong connections, not just to Nigeria, but to the Commonwealth. And we would see it as a life of public service and celebrate that. She touched so many lives in her 70 years as monarch. She, not just in the UK, became a figure that was so recognisable. And really what we'd like to do is not just celebrate that, also look forward to the monarchy of King Charles III and to respect her and to pay our respects and our condolences to her. So this evening really is a moment for members of the British community, members of the Nigerian community to come together and to do that.
At the end of the service, invitation to reception and condolence signing began with the Governor of Lagos State leading the way.
I think, as you can see, we just had a very solemn brief for very important service for Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. And as you can see, even from the service, her life has been a life full with humility, with dignity, with a lot of grace, very dutiful. And I'm sure the Queen, over the several decades, means different people to different people who had met her in one form or the other. I wouldn't lay claim to have met her personally, but watching from afar, you could see a woman of grace, a woman who indeed, has transformed life, has built bridges in the entire Commonwealth community. We're told she's been to over 112 countries, right? She's made the Commonwealth and the United Kingdom government stronger and bigger than what it is now. Having handed over government to over 15 prime ministers, well, I think all of our credentials will be difficult for previous and future kings and queens to beat. And so we want to wish King Charles III all the very best as he enters and he steps into a very, very, very big shoes of his late mom. To the Queen, it will be difficult in our generation to see another Queen. So we just want to say, well, adieu to her.
With the burial date in place and a new king on the throne, the world looks forward to a reign of peace and unity across the Commonwealth and beyond. Ozzy Okoli, Arise News, Lagos.
Right? Don't know a lot to say about this.
Yeah, I don't waste emotion on total strangers. I'm not in that fandom mode. But there's some exceptions. George Lucas and Queen Elizabeth. Remarkable human beings, you just have to say. Even people like me that are really quite unimpressed by strangers. She was amazing, that woman. I mean, just the epitome of public service. We've talked about this a lot last week. I don't want to rehash all of that, but it's so lovely to see the lying in state and people queuing. I was watching and I saw some people in wheelchairs, some people with walking sticks, and they're still queuing. They're happy to queue for 10 hours and more. They're like, the queue has snaked around for miles, literally, of people just wanting to say their final goodbyes. And that's the kind of, impression that she left on so many people, far and wide, because of her character, really, more than anything else. Because I don't know how you have a whole life, in the full public square. That's the most famous woman on earth, or was, and never had one scandal, never put a foot wrong. I think that's literally the only person who has accomplished that. And that really speaks a lot in terms of restraint, in terms of wisdom and class, let's face it. So I really think she deserves this. And I think the British government and the British royal family have really outdone themselves and have shown the world what they can do in terms of this whole pomp and pageantry, the meticulous planning that clearly went into it. And nobody put a foot wrong. It was also beautifully executed and great to watch. So I'm not a royalist. I just like her in particular. But I guess this also is an argument in favor of the royal family and what they do for their country, the way they fly the flag, and obviously also bring in tourist dollars. A lot of tourists will be flooding to London for the final, the Queen's curtain call on Monday.
Yeah, Dr. Bassey.
Well, I guess what has been confirmed with the outpouring of grief and affection, both in Britain and other parts of the world, as far away as Australia, Canada, New Papua Guinea, New Zealand, and other parts of the Commonwealth, and even here in Nigeria, is the fact that truly Queen Elizabeth II was a dominant, towering, influential figure in both the 20th and the 21st centuries. And she was able, to exert that influence beyond even the old empire that we often talk about to other parts of the world. Our connection, of course, with Nigerian history and experience has been well remarked upon by many persons. And it's not surprising to see that even here in Nigeria, both government and the people are honoring a woman who was a majestic figure in life, but whose death has also been majestic. Watching that, procession yesterday and the turnout of hundreds of thousands of persons going to Westminster Abbey with queues beyond the London Bridge, running into about 10 miles. And the indication that in fact some persons may have to stay on that queue for 35 hours until the burial on Monday, and they are so willing. When the body arrived, it was raining 2 days ago or so. People removed their umbrella. They preferred to be drenched by the drizzle, by the rain, in honor of a woman that was a major part of their lives, and the only monarch that many of them in Britain have ever known. There is no doubt, of course, that both in life and in death, Elizabeth II was a unifying figure. There are persons who have objections, but I think I've written at length, great length on this, to say that she's not the architect of colonialism. She should not be blamed for imperialism. She was born into this accident of history. But it is also instructive that many commentators on this have said, well, both sides of our legacy have been thrown up. The legacy of our efforts as a positive link between history and the moment. And also the fact that she's an inheritor, of something that she herself was not directly or personally responsible for. But there's no doubt she's sorely missed. And, the pomp and pageantry that you talk about, yes, it's about the resilience of culture, of tradition. And it's important to see this, in a constitutional monarchy, in a place where some people are anti-monarchists, but you see that resilience of tradition and culture. There are probably aspects of this that we can learn. And some people have also remarked on the fact that at a personal level, we are seeing some kind of solidarity, even within the family, with the Fabulous Four, the Fab Four, as they are known, working shoulder to shoulder to honor, their grandmother.
I mean, what else can be said about the life of Queen Elizabeth? Yeah, people will say things. I mean, they'll say things after we're long gone. We're always going to divide opinion. But one thing is steady. From the outpouring of love, the fact that people, despite their own personal challenges, can queue just to pay their last respect for hours. And the fact that they genuinely love her and they're showing that love, the fact that they're going out there putting out flowers and putting Paddington bears everywhere. Probably that's a little too much now. Marmalade sandwiches, because the Queen did pull one out of a bag and say, I always have marmalade sandwiches in that sketch she did with Paddington. The fact that the Commonwealth, is united and is strong. The fact that the firm, the home, the house of Windsor has come together. The fact that, despite all they have gone through, the house of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha still lives, even after the wars they have been through. And the fact that they've still been able to, harmonize their kingdom, speaks volumes about her. And I think most importantly, the fact that about 4 billion people are going to be watching the funeral worldwide. I think the population of the world is about 7.6 billion people. So at the end of the funeral, all this process, it will be said that 1 in 2 people you will meet would have heard about the funeral of the Queen or watched the funeral of the Queen. And this, this is magnificent. This shows you the power and what she commanded. Apart from being in the royal family, like you said rightly, Tundu, I think she transcended beyond that. She was that fresh breath of common sense in a world that lacks common sense. We've had leaders all over the world, and we see the trajectory of the world plummet from a place of sense and sensibility. Albeit I don't want to use the cliche from the time of the era of the likes of Jane Austen of sense and sensibility to abnormality, and lack of rational thinking. But she was that stabilizing factor. Because I think why a lot of people miss the Queen even more is the fact that she gave us stability in a Trumpian world. In a world that was up in the air every time. In a world that people had to be politically correct. She didn't need to be. She didn't need to say anything. She understood decorum. And she understood the fact that the feelings and emotions of people mattered. So she didn't need to inflame that. She needed to start a culture war. And how she did it is remarkable. I think it's a seminal thing we should all learn. In this world where everybody wants to be the next big trend and all of that, it's just amazing. And God rest her soul. But there's a new king in town. We'll see how Charles will be able to navigate from all of this. And most importantly, how the family will grieve and grieve well. Because in all of this, apart from being the Queen, King Charles III has lost a mother. The House of Windsor has lost a mother.